Hello and welcome in this new OSINT Origins episode. Today I'm very glad to welcome Micah Hoffman. Hi, Micah.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well.
It's a pleasure to meet you in real life, in person, in DC.
Yeah, it has been a really interesting event to put faces and personalities and all with these people that I've only known from the internet. So it was great meeting you, and I'm happy to be here on the show.
Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. So, can you maybe introduce yourself for the people who don't know you? But I guess there is not a lot of people that don't know you in the OSINT industry.
There's lots of you. So my name is Micah Hoffman, and I am currently an OSINT person that loves to make tools, likes to teach people about things, and likes to build communities. That's my, in a nutshell, introduction.
And how people know you? I mean, is it from Twitter? Is it from different projects?
So over the years, I've done a bunch of different projects. I was one of the co-founders of the OSINT Curious project back a number of years ago. I have worked for various companies teaching OSINT all over the world. I've created my own company called My OSINT Training, and now I work on that with my colleague Griffin Glynn. And on Twitter, I'm in Twitter and most of the social media applications. I'm WebBreacher over there. And there's so many other things I can go on, but I don't want to bore your users.
No. The first question, and maybe many people asked you the same question. Why WebBreacher? What is the story behind the username WebBreacher?
So before I was doing OSINT, I was doing cybersecurity, and in cybersecurity, I was in the hacker community, and I put big air quotes around the hacker community because
SQL injection.
Yeah, exactly. I did cybersecurity types of assessments, and I did pen testing and all. And I found I wanted to do things in the hacker community more. And at the time, I was doing a lot of breaking into websites. So WebBreacher made sense. Actually, I took WebBreacher instead of WebBreaker because WebBreaker, somebody already had that Twitter handle, and I couldn't get it from them. But then also there's a double meaning that when I was younger and creating this handle, I used to like hiking a lot, and I would go hiking with my kids, and they loved me going in the front of when we're walking down the hiking trail because I would break the spider webs in front of them. So little dual meaning there.
Okay. And about hiking, about kids, can you tell me maybe about your story? I mean, you born in DC or you're from the US, and which study did you done, and what is your life? What is your Wikipedia page?
I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those things where I'm going to point it later on, going, if you just want to OSINT me, this is going to be the podcast for that. So
password. We need your password first, and the name of the pet.
My password is I hate Sylvain, and my pet. No. So I am local. I'm local here to the United States, specifically to the Washington, D.C. area. I've grown up here all my life. And I studied initially in university psychology because I knew I wanted to be a psychologist. And so a lot of my early days were understanding about humans, human development, human behavior. And then I found in my last year of university that I really didn't like psychology anymore. It was too abstract. I needed more concrete, but I had already almost graduated. So at that point, I graduated with a psychology degree and went on to graduate school in a doctorate program. And I spent 2 years doing neuropsychology work where we were looking at brains and behavior. And I loved the medical aspect of that. But when I applied, I didn't want to get my PhD because I didn't really love psychology. I decided to go into medicine. So I quit my PhD program, went back to university, getting the biology, the chemistry, the physics, the calculus that you need for pre-medicine. And I applied to medical school for 2 years. And I didn't get in. So I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life and how I was going to make money. And by that time, I had met my wife, and we needed to move forward with our lives. And I remember this very vivid event. Throughout my life, I've noticed that there are these moments that become very clear in retrospect. So when I'm looking back, I'm like, that's the point where my life changed. And it's embracing those changes and being open to those changes that have really helped me in my career. So I remember I used to work night shift in a hospital. So the entire night, and then I'd get off at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I would go play a round of golf. And one day, instead of playing by myself, because at 7 o'clock in the morning there was nobody else on the golf course, they paired me up with some people that were selling computers to the government. And I'd always been one of those people that tinkered with computers. I'd always been good at computers, but I was in psychology. I was in medicine, but I also knew that my hours at the hospital were being cut. So I needed to find a new job. And it just happened to be that these guys were selling computers and they were looking for somebody to come in and work with them. Could I sell computers? I was like, yeah, I can sell computers. So that was how I left medicine. My career for psychology ended. My career for medicine had ended. And then I got into computers.
Wow, but in which year it was? It's like in early 2000, or it was
It was in the 1990s.
okay.
Yeah.
And so what was your hobby with computers? Because it was video games, or you were like cracking some stuff? It was developing some software, or
So back in those days in the 90s, it wasn't really that kind of stuff that I was doing.
uh-huh.
I wasn't really a hacker or anything like that, but I'd always been like really good at computers. I was one of the people that, parents or neighbors or friends would go, my computer's doing this. And do you know anything about it? I'm like, oh, yeah, let me go and defragment your hard drive or whatever, install programs. So it was just competency with it, more competency with computers than what other people had. So,
And when was the first, in your opinion? Because we didn't talk about OSINT before, but what was, in your opinion, the first OSINT trick that you made? When in the 90s or that kind of stuff. Do you have any idea about that or not?
so we've gone way back. So I sold computers, and then I started doing tech support. Then I started doing cybersecurity, and it wasn't until I started doing cybersecurity and I started to do assessments where we had reconnaissance phase, and it was in that phase that I learned the tools and techniques to find what was online and to find what's on a network when I break into the network legally. But I didn't know the word open source intelligence.
Passive reconnaissance before pen test.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so within my knowledge, I was doing recon or reconnaissance, and that was just part of the process. It wasn't until later on that I learned, and I hear this a lot from other people. They're like, I'd been doing OSINT for a long time. I just didn't call it OSINT.
But how did you move from selling the computer to performing some penetration testing? Because I guess many people that are watching us or that are listening us, they are maybe, I don't know, they are selling some stuff, or they are in medicine. And seriously, on OSINT-FR, I have many messages from people that said, I want to work in OSINT. And do you know a good course or a good university stuff? And so it's possible. I mean, did you add skill to move, or I mean, how did you move from selling to doing some technical stuff?
Yeah, I hear that same stuff that people are looking to move from a field not associated with cybersecurity or not associated with OSINT into the OSINT field because it is engaging, it is interesting, and what we find nowadays is that people with a diverse background, with people that don't come from traditional cyber or traditional intelligence, they have different perspectives that they bring. They look at data different, or they have different strengths, like languages that I don't have. And bringing those people into an OSINT team is very useful.
And for example, if you see, I don't know, but if you see a video of somebody that is sick, that you recognize, for example, I don't know, Ebola or that kind of stuff, because you have some medicine skills, you can have a guess that right now there is Ebola on that country, that country, that country. So that's the kind of stuff that is pretty interesting with OSINT. OSINT, it's you can have any skills in anything; it will be useful.
Yeah, it's experience, right?
Yeah.
It's having that experience, and that's one of the things that I try to highlight when people are coming from an unrelated field into OSINT. I highlight that you might be a graphics designer and you understand how to edit images and how images can be altered. So misinformation, disinformation may be an area that you want to start with because you already bring existing experience. I talk about sometimes when I do geolocation challenges. I did a capture the flag one time while I was doing a live stream for the OSINT Curious project. And I remember going into this capture the flag, and it was a video, and the video was of somebody standing on the balcony of a hotel.
Yeah.
And they said, "Tell us where this is." And all they did was they panned the camera across the view. Well, my experience showed me that that building that's way up high in the air was in Singapore, because there's only one of those buildings in the whole world. And it's that experience that I bring. So when people say, "Hey, I'm from Brazil, but I don't know how I can contribute," well, you know Brazil a lot better than I do. So there are things that you bring.
Yeah. So you say you mentioned OSINT couriers. So first of all, is it OSINT or OSINT?
So I actually don't care. Honestly, there are the people that are like it's OSINT or OSINT. It's open source intelligence, so OSINT. I don't care. I mean, I think focusing on the spelling or how it's pronounced is just petty.
I guess it's because we are technical guys and we are autodidact. And that's pretty funny, because some people told me about definition and that kind of stuff. I said, yeah, but I can have the guess about the basic definition, but I'm not a university guy, and I think you've done the same. You learned OSINT by yourself,
Yeah,
during the stuff, and when you've done some penetration testing and that kind of stuff, you change and you adapt.
yes, and also one of the things I talked about diversity earlier. I never realized how important diversity was in thought, in application, because my name, Micah, over here in the United States, I call myself Micah. Other people call me Micah. And when I go overseas to France, the I in my name is an E sound, right? So you call me Mika. Well, when I first started going over to places, I'm like, no, my name is Micah. But then I started realizing, who cares what people are calling me as long as they're comfortable. So I don't get hung up on pronunciations anymore.
Okay. And so, yeah, you told me about OSINT Couriers. That was, in my opinion, was of the biggest and maybe one of the very famous projects in the world about OSINT. And you've done many kind of good stuff, many good guides, many interviews, many podcasts, all that kind of stuff. And seriously, congratulations, because I think it was helpful for many people, for beginners, but also for advanced OSINT practitioner. But how the idea of creating OSINT Couriers, first, to have the idea to have the website on .us, that's the little details that change everything. No, but what is the story about OSINT Couriers?
So the origin story is a little interesting. It's actually two origin stories, and I forget why I decided to buy the OSINT Curious name with the .us as part of it. But I just thought that was like that captured the essence of the wonder, the curiosity, coming into OSINT not from a typical military intelligence or a typical law enforcement background. When I discovered all the things that we could do, it really was like opening my eyes. And so I became very curious about all the things. And I found the more curious I was, the more I found, the more I learned, and the more I dived into. So I actually bought the OSINTCurio.us name months before we actually created the group, or even thought about creating the group. And then it was at DEX-XL, the conference, a law enforcement conference over in the Netherlands, when I first met Nico Dakins and Lizette Abercrombie and Kirby Plessis and Ben Strick, Sector 035, and Ben Strick. And it was us there in the conference. We were talking and hanging out, kind of like you and I are doing here. And we started talking about a lot of people coming into the OSINT world that were eager for material, eager for knowledge. But there were some people that were publishing blog posts and were doing talks that were giving erroneous data. It was not the best representation of OSINT and the OSINT world. And so what we decided to do was go out and put forth some good, trustworthy knowledge for free for people to focus on. So we said, we're going to create this group, and this group is we're going to do blog posts. We're going to blog and vlog and interview people. We're going to have fun with it. And we're going to put out data, tips and tricks and other things that people can trust and that we can build a brand on.
And when did you created that? It was in which year?
So December of 2018 is when we had the idea, and then January of 2019 we did it.
It's pretty funny because I don't know why, I don't understand why, but in my opinion, many groups in open source intelligence was created in 2019.
Really?
Because if you check, for example, OpenFacto, I don't know if you know OpenFacto, it was created in 2019. OSINT-FR, we created that in 2019 also. And it's like, I don't know why, but it's pretty funny because many people done open source intelligence, but there is like a stuff that we see that the definition of OSINT evolved because me also for sure OSINT it's not stalking, but the first talks that I gave about OSINT I've called that stalking,
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting about the definition that changed, but also about the techniques and how you succeed to keep updated on OSINT.
So I found out later on, I found out really early in my cybersecurity days that there was no way that I could know everything. And that it was a really hard thing for me as a younger person to really face, that I could not learn all the things and be great at all the things. So what I started doing is finding people that knew more than me at different stuff. And then they became my network of people that I relied on. And actually, the OSINT Curious project was a tremendously successful project because we had people from all over the world that were in it. We had people that had different backgrounds and different experiences. And so I didn't have to know about this Facebook thing. We had Kirby Plessis, who was doing amazing work, and Lizette Abercrombie, Technizette. So what I find is that keeping up to date with people that are different than me has helped me in my career. But I also have, blog posts that I check, and I'm on social media following the hashtags and things like that as well.
Yeah, because right now, which are your main job? And first, sorry, I forgot a critical question. Why OSINT Curious stopped?
Okay.
I mean, there is a blog post for sure and so on, but maybe people don't know. And I mean, I don't want to make you uncomfortable with that, but why OSINT Curious stopped? Because it was very useful for many people.
It was more, it was all online. First off, so we could check and see how many people were visiting our website to know relative popularity, and we see people retweeting our stuff. But we had no idea like the real scope of what was happening until people in governments, people in universities would say, hey, your video on this or your 10-minute tip is part of our curriculum. Your materials are all we have because we have no budget to learn open source intelligence. So we had we knew that, people were watching, but we didn't understand necessarily the importance. But, time went by. We were together for 4 years or so. And what happened is that during those 4 years, each of us got busier and busier and busier. Yeah. And so the amount of time and our lives changed too. If you look back at Sylvain from 4 years ago, he was a different person, right? You had different demands on your time. And that's really what happened to us, is we had a lot of different projects that we were now interested in doing. Our careers were going in different directions. Yeah. And we found that the time that we could contribute to OSINT Curious, the project, was less and less. So we decided to close it up.
And so now, what is your main job? So what are your main jobs?
Yeah. So I actually have two, as you hinted at. My first job is I run a training organization called My OSINT Training, myosint.training, with a good friend and colleague of mine, Griffin Glynn. Griffin and I own the training, and it's really nice from my perspective, having taught for other organizations. It's nice to be able to teach what I want, how I want it, when I want. Um, and Griffin is an amazing, amazing counterpart to the organization. And I'm really happy that he joined up. So we teach people via online recorded classes on our website. We do talks at conferences. We do live trainings too. And that satisfies that teacher in me. And then there's the other part of me that wants that casework, that wants those examples, wants to have an impact. And for that, I'm very thankful that, again, Griffin helped me join an organization, a nonprofit called the National Child Protection Task Force, or NCPTF. And NCPTF helps law enforcement with open source intelligence and investigative support. So, when a child goes missing, when somebody is suspected of being trafficked, or during other situations, law enforcement will reach out to NCPTF and say, "We need a little help with it, with this case." We have a lot of tools that have been graciously donated to us. And so we're using some really excellent tools to examine social medias, to find the people that are missing.
It's very interesting about NCPTF because, in my opinion, I will speak about France. I don't know in Europe if it's the same. It's pretty hard to have, for example, a law enforcement. For sure, there is Europol, Most Wanted, or Trust and Object, that kind of stuff, or Interpol Red Notice. But it's pretty rare to have, or maybe I don't have any idea about that law enforcement will be able to call an organization just of volunteers that will do justice by themselves.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the law enforcement may be the first risk that they have. They don't want to disclose sensitive investigations. Mm-hmm. And also, you need to make sure that there are people that are trained and that will not, for example, trigger a notification for the target or contact the target, that kind of stuff. So how can you handle all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, those are excellent, excellent points. And when we talk to law enforcement, we share that we are an intelligence-based organization. Okay. What we do is we generate additional data that they then have to verify. So we provide them the URLs to social media profiles. We provide them pointers to a picture here that they might want to check out because this is where the missing person's boyfriend or girlfriend quoted them or something like that, or took a picture with them. So we do the intelligence and offload that from some law enforcement. And you're absolutely right. There are a lot of investigations we consult on. So we might consult on legal process. We have some law enforcement officers that work with us. We also have some retired law enforcement and prosecutors that are really top notch. And so when a police officer or a detective or some constable calls us and says, I need some assistance here, we can help them with how do they submit legal process to a social media company. Because social media companies generally don't like disclosing information unless you ask for it in a very specific way. And so we train them on how to do that stuff as well. So there is a lot that we don't do, but the things that we do help empower police officers. We do not take over their cases. We do not solve cases. We bring them extra data.
It's only law enforcement in the US, so it can be in Canada, it can be anywhere in the world?
Anywhere in the world. We have relationships with law enforcement from Australia to places in Europe. We've done talks in even places in the Middle East and other places as well. So anybody.
Okay. And so it's pretty funny, not funny, sorry, but it's pretty interesting because the laws and the court in each country change.
Yes.
And so when you are doing your investigation, you are giving a report, or you are giving just clues for the law enforcement that will be able to write stuff to go on in court. How it's working? Because many people told me, like, for example, on EPOs, for example, can I use EPOs in legal court, Yep. And it depends on the country. I mean, how do you deal with that?
Well, we are subject, so most of our analysts are inside of the United States. So we are governed by the United States law, and the United States law is I'll say, more lax than things in Europe and
In
other
all the
places.
states, or it's
Yeah, in most of the states.
okay.
California and a couple other states have some privacy laws,
Yeah.
but usually the people that we're researching are not necessarily in the United States, or they might be. Um, so what we do is we provide and investigate an intelligence report to law enforcement. And in the report, we say, we don't want to go to court.
Okay.
We want to help you. So use the information that we're giving you to go ahead and confirm and validate that this is actually the right profile before you send legal process off to that social media company.
So, for example, you or Griffin, you will not go in court to
Right.
show the report or that kind of stuff.
We are not expert witnesses. We are people that empower law
Hmm.
enforcement. Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting the stuff that you said about the social media that don't want to share. And there is many social media that, for example, they accept for sure legal warrant because they have to. It's mandatory or that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But maybe it reply 2 months after, 3 months later, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Are you able to deal with that? And for example, you have a law enforcement that says, okay, we have an emergency. And are you able to do that kind of stuff like in like a task force, like to reply pretty fast?
So we don't have any legal we don't ever contact social media
Okay.
on behalf of law enforcement. What we do is we give law enforcement the correct words to put in their legal
Mhm.
process to request that emergency data. There are exigent circumstances that says right now we have a problem and we need your help to solve it now. And in most cases, that is that quicker response. But law enforcement and social media, in the United States, we have rights, First Amendment
Mhm.
rights to be able to say stuff and other things. So a lot of the social media companies rightly require law enforcement to say the right things before they disclose that sensitive data that they hold. And what we do is we help law enforcement understand what the words are, what to request and how to request it, and what's even out there. A lot of the law enforcement that reaches out to us might be in a small town or in a place in the world where they don't have a big budget. So they don't understand even what Google or Apple has that they could ask for. So we help with those types of consultations too.
And so I guess you have a lot of secret tips.
So I don't. In the organization, I focus on open source intelligence and data analysis, but we do have some really, really talented law enforcement and prosecutors that have some really good experiences that they
Yeah.
share.
No, but I mean tips, OSINT tips, like
Oh,
for
yeah.
example, we talked yesterday about that around the beer for sure, because all the OSINT
Yes.
stuff do. But for example, we talked about the page owner of on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you also have a training company, but is it is it not that difficult to choose which kind of stuff you can disclose and which kind of stuff you can keep it only for you?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest challenges. And we had that when I was doing cybersecurity as well. We would make a new tool that would exploit a certain CVE, common vulnerabilities or vulnerabilities and exposure, right? It would exploit a certain vulnerability. And then we would have to evaluate what's the benefit of releasing this versus keeping that close to our chest. Could attackers do really bad things with it? Same thing with open source intelligence. Revealing a technique, especially on social media, may alert bad people to start using it or may alert the social media company to close that privacy vulnerability. And we saw that with the Facebook one where you used to create a page and then it would
Yeah.
resolve the email into an ID. So yes, there's always that weighing of the value of the releasing versus the value of the tip. And so we don't teach everything that we know. We don't train people on everything we know just because.
So, in why did you create Maya in training? Because me, the advice that I give to people is like, okay, you need to train about OSINT, try to do some investigations
Mhm.
or try to read some Bellingcat white papers or that kind of stuff or some
Mhm.
investigations but of course there is some operation security risk and so on. So why did you create my OSINT training?
So again, I go back to my cybersecurity days where in cybersecurity, there was so much data out there. There were so many blog posts and vlogs and podcasts about how to start an OSINT, how to do stuff. In fact, there were so many things out there that people couldn't figure out how to actually start in, it's like having the endless possibilities of from digital forensics to incident response to policy to pen testing. And you're like, I don't even know where I need to begin. And so thinking about that, I created a course for an international training organization. And that course had to be a certain length. It had to be 5 to 6 days in length. What I found is that a lot of people would come to class and they would want a third or half of the material in the class because maybe they did one type of open source intelligence. Maybe they were doing due diligence, or maybe they were working with law enforcement to find people. So all of the stuff I was talking about dark web or about some other topics, they didn't really care about. So some of them tuned out. So with my OSINT training, one of the cool things that we have is you can buy all of our classes and have access to everything, or you can just buy those little pieces that you need. If you just want a class on how to do things in TikTok, we've got that, and you can just purchase that. And so I created my OSINT training for that flexibility of learning. I wanted people to access the data and make it affordable as well.
And so how, because to do that, and we know that open source intelligence evolve every day. Like it's to be honest, in my opinion, it's an adage, because you cannot, and you need to specialize. Because when somebody told me like I want to do OSINT, okay, but which kind of OSINT? Is it for cybersecurity? Is it for due diligence on China, on Middle East, on that kind of stuff? Like it's completely different. And how, maybe you are superhuman, but how you do your monitoring about new OSINT techniques and all that kind of stuff? Do you have do you schedule like 2 hours each day to do that kind of stuff, or?
Not really. And I'll be very honest with you and your listeners. I don't know all of the things in OSINT. I really don't. I can't. And I've been getting better at accepting the fact that I just can't know all these cool things. So when somebody's telling me about the latest thing that they're doing with AI and making deepfake videos or voice videos or voices, or when they're telling me about how they're taking ADS-B signals and all of the other signals and making these amazing things, tracking planes, I know of those things and that that those things exist. And I think that that's been my superpower, is understanding what's possible. Then when I need them, I will talk to a person. I will research those terms. But if you don't know those blogs, those techniques, those topics are out there, you can't actually leverage them.
And so in your opinion, do you need, or do you create a tool every day, for example, do that?
I do not. No. And you asked me about like, how do I stay abreast of things? I am on social media. I do look at different blog posts. I follow certain people and certain accounts, and that helps a little bit. But I also am in several communities like OSINT-FR. I'm not in there because I did try to get in there.
Too much message.
And it's not too much message. It's I had to do so much Google translating that it was very frustrating, because I'm not a native French reader. So, but you finding that community of people that are just talking about stuff, random stuff, but OSINT related, exposes me to a lot of that. And when I ran the OSINT Curious, or when we had the OSINT Curious Discord, that was one of the wonderful things about it, is that you have people from literally all over the world sharing their challenges, sharing their ideas and their thoughts. And it exposed me. I think one of the biggest things that it exposed me to, that everybody doesn't do OSINT this way. And when I came into OSINT, I knew about the cyber way of doing OSINT. I had no idea about due diligence. I had no idea how military intelligence was using OSINT. And so all of these things I've learned by talking with my students, by watching what people are posting, and by passively learning it.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting because me, for example, I do not have longer time, to perform some investigations, and now I have some people that are better than me and that focus only that are specialized on that stuff. And you talked about OSINT for penetration testing, and you have many more stuff. For example, I don't know, I don't want to pronounce that bad, but Hamas, I don't know, from OWASP. It's a tool on GitHub, very interesting. And you add some new stuff. For example, I mean, now it's not that new, but we knew about Shodan,
Yeah.
and now you have Census, and now you can check all the certificate transparency and all that kind of stuff. But you need to keep to follow everything, and I think you need to focus on the stuff. So my question is, which people do you recommend to follow, or which
So
organization? I mean,
yeah.
like which account or
So I'm going to take it one step back. I'll
yep.
answer that in one step question 1 minute. But you just mentioned, there are so many things to learn and so many things to explore. One of the things I tell the people that come to me for advice is that they should have a Google Doc or a Notepad doc or something that has all of the things in OSINT that they don't know, that they need to learn. And then
Interesting.
as they get free time, you check off one of those things. You dive deeper and you cross it off. Because if you don't do that, then you're not working towards something. That list is going to get absolutely huge. My list is incredibly long, but you know what? Every now and then I check something off that I know it. Now, as far as following people, I'd say follow you. But seriously, it's
Thank
you
you.
have to.
I
You're
didn't
welcome.
pay Micah. Not yet, not yet.
So in the OSINT world, there are lots of different
Yeah.
people, right? I come at OSINT in a certain way. I speak a certain way. I present data in a certain way. And that might not be something that a lot of people like. I know that there's a lot of other people out there that are presenting data a little differently or tips and tricks differently. Go onto a social media site that you're comfortable with, whether it's Reddit or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter.
Blue Sky?
Blue Sky. I
Do you
want
think
to say Blue Sky. I do. I want to say Blue Sky and Mastodon, but the reality is that it's just not critical mass yet. There are people on Blue Sky and Mastodon that are posting OSINT stuff, and that's great. But really, a lot of people are still on X or Twitter.
Yeah.
So go on whatever platform, LinkedIn. I don't care. Join a community like OSINT-FR or some of the other ones that are out there, and watch what people are saying and then follow them. I'll say follow me. That's great, but I'm not as active on social media as I used to be. So there's also a really good page, Griffin Glynn, my
sure.
buddy.
Yeah.
He has the ultimate OSINT Start Me page, and it's at we have made a short link called myosint.link/hatless.
And another question is like, do you have any reference? Like, do you have any favorite movie or TV series or book? Or it can be in OSINT, or outside of OSINT, in any kind of stuff. Like, do you have some recommendations?
That's you asked me that and you prepped me for that, and I'm still drawing blanks. I'm sure when I'm done with this,
I have 8 hours of flying from
yeah,
DC to Paris, so I need to have some new stuff.
So for the longest time, there's Michael Bazel's Intel Techniques book, right? That is considered by many the Bible. I wrote the foreword for Ray Baker's book on open source intelligence, a deep dive, and that actually is nice. It's a nice counterpoint to Bazel's book. So I personally am not a big book reader, but I think that Ray has captured a lot of really good skills in her book, and she presents it in a really compelling way. For me, I mean, there are a lot of YouTube videos that are out there that I love watching.
Ben Strix, for example.
I was just going to say Bendo Brown on YouTube. He has such, well, first off, he's Australian.
Yeah.
And then
nobody's perfect. No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding, Ben. Sorry to all Australia.
You lost your whole audience. I mean, so he has that great accent,
Yeah.
but then he is so not only technically proficient, but he is so entertaining and skilled at conveying the messages. So I love watching his stuff, and there's other people like that that I like watching too.
Yeah, I fully agree. And about TV series or movies, no, nothing. Come on, what was your favorite movie when you were a kid or that kind of stuff?
My favorite movie is The Princess Bride, which is a United States movie from 1987, and it is just a cult classic. That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Okay. Thank you just before ending that episode, which stuff do you need? I don't know if NCPTF are searching for volunteers, or if how can we help you? For sure, guys, you have to absolutely visit my OSINT training and NCPTF for sure. It's pretty cool. But how the community can help you, and do you need to be in touch with somebody or that kind of stuff?
I appreciate you asking. So first off, I want to give back to the community. On myosint.training, we have a free introduction to OSINT course. It's 2 hours long. It's absolutely free. You just sign up for an account and you're learning OSINT. So if you have anybody in your audience that's like, I have no idea where to start with my training, go take that free course. There are no strings attached at all, and we provide you a basic understanding, and then we launch you into a whole bunch of different resources, including talking about people to follow, talking about different communities as well. So my suggestion is if you're new to OSINT, go do that. As far as NCPTF goes right now, I don't think we're looking for any new personnel, and no new volunteers, no employees. But I do know that we're always looking for supporters.
Yeah.
We are a nonprofit. So if anybody would like to donate funds or software or access to tools to help us locate missing and exploited people more, we are always open to that. So ncptf.org, there's a link on there to contact us.
Yeah. And you are also, NCPTF are organizing an event, right, in a few months?
That's right. So this actually in March, we have.
I don't know when it will be published. I promise I will try to go as fast.
That's okay. That's okay. So in March, we have a small law enforcement event in Florida over here in the United States. And then we're not doing a June event anymore. We're going to be pushing all the way to November. And I believe in November, we're going to be working with one of our partner organizations to do a conference. So on the ncptf.org website, you'll see all of that.
And law enforcement can contact you, I guess.
Absolutely. If law enforcement need assistance, want advice, recommendations, you have somebody that is missing or being exploited, and you want us to help you generate leads, please definitely go to the NCPTF's page and you can reach out to us.
Micah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
You know, when you said you were coming over
here, don't cry.
I'm this close. When you said you were coming over to the United States and that we could record this, I was really looking forward to meeting you, because I've really appreciated the Epios tool and what it's allowed us to do. But it's also been just fabulous talking with you today.
The pleasure was mine. You are welcome also at the Le Hack OSINT Village in Paris. I will be more than glad to welcome you. Thank you very much. It was very cool, and let's drink a beer.
Let's have a beer.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.